to figure out and learn what Kolbie has in store for me today. And so I'm scared. Should I be scared? Should I be scared?
Well, if you like painting, I don't think you should be scared.
Okay. Good. Do I need special supplies? Like what? Oh, look, she's shaking her head.
Well, not like special supplies. I don't know. Watercolor supplies. Okay, so the supplies we're using today, you'll need some kind of blue. I would probably have like, if you have like a dark blue and then also a lighter blue, if you have both of those.
Okay.
Purple, and if you have like a peach and pink, that's like the color scheme we're going for. So
okay.
So slightly more colorful than sometimes I do, but I thought that would be fun for you.
Yes, I'm here for it.
I typically use around number 10.
Okay, I think I have 12.
12 works, yeah. I was gonna say, but 10 or up, 10 or higher.
Okay.
Just to be like a wash brush. And then also a mid one and a small one. So I usually do 6 and 2. And then do you have, I assume you have some kind of either paper towel or artist cloth, something like that. If you have some kind of dryer, that would be helpful, but it's not necessary. But sometimes it's nice to have a dryer if you get impatient and you have to work.
Okay. I may decide to play it risky. We'll see.
That's why I chose the one that I did, because you can play it risky with this one and have it just be kind of, loose and abstract, and that'll be great. And then next is just paper. So I'm using a watercolor block, but you can use this is just 7 by 10, but you can use smaller. If you just have a piece of paper, I would tape down all 4 sides.
I'm going to, for the sake of just keeping it real, because I'm going to use Gen Crafts. This is the paper that I've recommended is the best budget category paper.
All right.
To a lot of people's shock and awe and anger, maybe. But I tore a sheet out, and I'm going to try this. So you're saying I should wet both sides?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you wet both sides, then the paper will just stick to the desk a little bit easier, and it actually will work for what we're doing. We're not doing a whole lot of like detailed definition things. We're doing some. I'll show you the picture we're going to use reference from in a minute.
I don't know why I'm nervous, but I am.
Well, you don't paint these very often, so that's probably why. I paint them a lot. I get super nervous when I'm about to paint florals, so I guess maybe we'll have to do a reciprocal one later.
Oh, we might. I might have to put you in this position.
Will be fun. Yeah, so just get both sides wet or not, whatever. Honestly, I'm the kind of person who's like, you can do what I'm doing or not and just wing it. Whatever is fine. We're going to have fun no matter what. So
I think it's great. I think I will deviate a little bit where it makes sense for me, and that'll be a fun learning experience for everyone watching, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually perfect, because that's how following tutorials is the most fun, is not feeling like they're really rigid and like you have to follow every step, but seeing them more as like a loose guideline or anchor you can, go back to when you need to. But then that's how creativity sparks, is by changing one little thing at a time, according to you.
Yes. For friends watching, all the supplies that we're both using, I'm going to list below in the description section. So I'll be like, Christy supplies, Kolbie supplies, the whole 9. So if you have any questions in regards to that, don't worry. It's all going to be there for you. Okay, now you've got a larger round.
Yeah, so I said 12, or 10 and up. Because I'm using a larger paper, this is a 16, just because I'm getting the whole thing wet. So really, if you have the biggest wash brush you have, because we're getting the whole paper wet very first, I'm only going to use that at the beginning. And then I'm going to be using the 10 and 6 and 2 after that.
I'm going to use, in addition, my my new 3/4 dagger.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick, this is exactly what I'm using kind of thing. So this is Arches. And then for the colors I'm using, I'm going to mix some of them and then use some straight from the pigment. So these are the tubes that we're going to have. Winsor Newton Indigo, which is like a deep, rich blue. And then this is Holbein Verditor Blue, which is kind of like a light sky blue. And this is Winsor Newton Lemon Yellow Deep. And then Daniel Smith Opera Pink. I love, love, love Opera Pink, Opera Rose, those like fluorescent pinks for mixing specifically because they just make the coolest mixes. So I'm going to use this to make the like peach pink we're going to use and the violet we're going to use just because I think they're really fun. So, all right.
Kolbie, I'm going to interrupt you, not to be rude, but I know my community here and many are very concerned, and it's spoken about a lot, the fugitive nature of the operas. How do you feel about that? Do you have a solution for that? I'm curious.
So light fastness is definitely something to keep in mind if you keep your artwork in direct sunlight. But because I'm a person who makes art for me, I make art because it's fun for me. The process is fun for me. And then sometimes I make art to, frame or give away or stand the test of time. Whenever I have art anyway on my walls, I try to keep them out of direct sunlight specifically because even if you have light fast paints, direct sunlight is still just a killer for color. So I use Opera Pink because I really, really love how it looks when I mix it into colors. So it's just for me. If I were to paint something to give to somebody else, I don't know that I would use it just for that reason. But it's also, a preference.
I will, and just to add to that, so you don't have to tell me about Opera Pink. I actually have, my team gifted me a locket, a sterling silver locket filled with a dollop of Opera Pink that I wear around my neck. Okay. And so I adore Opera Pink, Opera Rose, depending on the brand. But I'm also, and I license my work. I sell originals. Yes. I just sold an original the other day full of fluorescent pigments. Now I sell them with caveat, like, hey, frame them, get them under UV glass. I also send out any paintings that like that with a fixative, a UV fixative, yes, that I spray directly on the surface. But it's always been my general approach that folks are way too concerned about light fastness. So I'm just going to let the comment section blow up right now on that topic for like the umpteenth time on this channel. But I love your perspective and I appreciate it so much. But we'll continue on for sure.
Yes, let's do it. And, like I said, it is totally up to you. If you are a person who is very concerned with light fastness, I commend you for knowing that about yourself. And yes, I appreciate you for letting me have my space.
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the colors that I'm going to use. It's a pretty limited palette, but we're going to get some really fun mixes, I think, from it. And now let's take a, these are the brands that I'm using. I'm a pretty diehard Princeton brush brand. I don't know why I said it that way, but I'm using the Princeton Neptune round number 6, Princeton Neptune round number 10. The reason that I have the Neptune series for these is because the Neptune series is synthetic squirrel. Synthetic sable. It's not real animal hair, so no animals were harmed in the making of these brushes, but it's really floppy. And so, but also, sometimes still holds a point. So that's why I like the Neptune brands for the big wash brushes. And then Princeton Heritage 6 and 2, which are synthetic sable. So they're a little bit more stiff. Or not stiff really, because Heritage is really soft, but they hold their shape a little bit better than the Neptune does. And so for details, which is why I use 6 and 2, I like that snap back a little bit better.
Awesome.
Just for anybody who doesn't know about those types of brushes. And then we are doing lots of lifting. And so that's why I have a clean towel over here. And we're doing lots of lifting because, here's the reference photo we're using.
I'm so nervous. If there's cloud, oh God, there's clouds.
There's clouds.
Oh God, there's clouds.
No, don't be afraid. Even if you follow exactly what I do, you are not going to come up with a painting that looks exactly like mine.
Yes,
and
okay.
even if your clouds don't immediately look like clouds, we're going to have so much fun making a mess with the paint on here. So.
I appreciate. I feel like everything I teach is coming right back at me right now, and I'm still having heart palpitations. So okay, let's do it.
Well, all right. We're gonna practice a lot of courage here. We're gonna be really uncomfortable and exercise our courage muscle. Yes. And at the end of the day, it might be a piece you recycle, and that's okay.
That's okay. Yep. Breathe.
All right. Okay, so before I paint from a reference photo, and for anybody who has seen any tutorials from me, this process will probably be familiar for you. I like to make just a brief plan. Okay, so the plan for this reference photo is basically we are going to paint a wet on wet gradient for the underlayer here. Okay, so we're going to go, and really the underlayer we're going to keep in mind is this light blue. Okay, so the top is going to be this light blue, and then it's going to transition down into these like peachy pink colors, and then violet and blue down here. And then when we look at the ocean is a very, very small portion of this painting. We always want to paint from dark to light, right? And so the lightest part of the ocean is this pink color. And so the underlayer gradient then is going to be this pink color. So it's like we're going to have light blue up here that's really luminous with lots of patches of white. And then it will transition down to like pink, peachy pink, purple, and then back into the pink right here. Make sense?
I do the thing with, I will draw on flowers to show basic shapes with my iPad. So I love that you do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's such an easy way to see it, right? And I'm going to do the exact same thing right here where I talk about the next layer, which we're not going to let it dry. We're going to, while the layer is wet, we're going to use a towel and lift this kind of cloud shape in this kind of circle. Basically, like we're going to leave this little, like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Kind of an organic shape.
It's like an amoeba.
Yeah, it is like an amoeba. Yeah, exactly. So we're like going to lift in a circle to make this like amoeba shape in the middle. And then we're going to, and then there's just this tiny little cloud down here. So we're going to lift a little bit down here. That'll be more intuitive. We'll kind of see how we feel. We're also going to lift a little spot for the sun. You could, if you have masking fluid, just use masking fluid for the sun right here. I'm not going to do that because I think I use masking fluid, but I also think it's difficult to work with. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm okay just lifting that spot.
Yeah, I don't even know where I have masking fluid. So,
well, there you go. I'm glad that we're not doing that then.
Yeah.
So, and then while all of this, so we're lifting all of this, and that will mean the paper is kind of dry, kind of wet. It'll be this really interesting, cool, damp situation. And then we're going to add back in the darker blues and violets for the shadows of the clouds, leaving behind these little patches of light space. And it is not going to look exactly like this picture. It is going to be super messy and awkward. And
yes,
that's what I love about clouds.
Okay, good. Okay. I mean, on the left here it is. Yes.
Mine's also going to look, let me put it this way. It is going to feel very messy and awkward for me. I've painted many of these, so mine is going to look different from yours, but it's still going to feel messy and awkward. And then the very last thing we're going to do, because by the time we finish up with these clouds, the bottom portion of this gradient will probably be relatively dry, so we can add in the water texture for the ocean down here. And hopefully we'll be able to do all of that in about half an hour or less. That's what I'm intending. So I am putting this off to the side so that I can see it. But just so you know, I often have reference photos up, but I also often look at them once and then don't look at them again. Because
I'm so glad to hear that, because I am the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I am not, like, I will start, maybe I'll sketch from a reference photo.
Yep.
Or choose my color scheme. And then I'm an hour in and I haven't looked at the darn thing again. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, you know, okay, that makes me feel better about life.
Yep. And that's honest, like that's the way that I think creativity is doable. Like, you know, finding your style or being creative is starting with something solid, but then letting your mind wander and just, you know, not worrying about getting it right, instead worrying about having fun. So,
we're wetting.
right. Very first thing, we're getting our whole paper wet. So if you are working with a loose sheet of paper, you can do what we talked about earlier, which is you get the back and the front wet. Or if you're working on a loose sheet of paper and you don't want to do that, my recommendation is to not go edge to edge with the wetness.
Yes.
It's to have kind of like an organic edge so that your painting mostly stays in the middle, so that you still have some dry sides, because that will...
I'm literally going to turn this over and wet it.
Sounds good. Yes.
Yeah. Like I'm just going to like go back here and go, woo.
Yep. And then you just put it down on your desk and it should kind of like suction itself to the desk.
That's freaking cool.
I know, right?
I'm also I'm not going to the edge. There's something about like when I do landscapes, I very rarely go to the edge unless I'm really confident in the painting. There's something about that white space that makes me happier.
It does provide a little bit more of a buffer. And I will say that it took me probably 4 years of painting landscapes before I went edge to edge.
Okay.
So, not to say that it's like better, because it's not. It's a preferential thing for sure.
Gotcha.
So first thing, I'm going to grab my sky blue, which is Holbein Verditor blue, and I'm just going to start painting. I'm not going to paint, because it doesn't need to be, you know, like a really seamless gradient. With the sky blue here, I'm going to be really loose and leave behind lots of pockets of white space, especially because we're going to lift a lot of this one, right? Really, the only sky blue that's going to stay is this middle amoeba-like spot, okay? So we're going to paint it about maybe halfway, like halfway down the page is where we're going to kind of paint this Verditor light sky blue. If you don't have a light blue, you can just add a lot of water to a different blue, and that will make it light by changing the value. So that's one thing that you can do if you don't have the exact one that I'm using. And then we're going to transition into some Opera Rose. By itself is just slightly too bright for me. So I'm adding in just a little bit of Lemon Yellow Deep, so that I get more of a, you know, rose color down here. And important to note is I am painting it not immediately under the blue. I'm leaving behind a little bit of white space and painting just kind of slightly up, because where the clouds are hanging low down here, there's a lot of like, you know, random light pieces going on. And so we don't want like a seamless gradient. Instead, I'm starting a little bit below and then painting in kind of like strokes into the blue, just like random zigzags. And they're really subtle, but it will help provide like little glimmers of this color in the sky blue. So if you're wondering, oh, how do I make that kind of, I don't know, shape in my sky, I always keep zigzags in mind. That makes like a really nice, natural, filtered light effect. All right. So there's
just a reminder, friends, I am using not Arches. I'm using Jen Crafts. I recommended this as the best budget paper. So it is doing all sorts of fun things with this big heavy wash, but I'm going to stick with it.
All right. Well, and that's another thing important to note is if you're not using 100% cotton paper, you can still paint beautiful things, and you might need to re-wet your sky a little bit. If you find that as we're painting down here, if you find that your sky is starting to get dry, we want to make sure that this stays wet while we're painting.
Good point. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to take my Opera Rose and mix it with just a little bit of indigo, just like a tiny bit of indigo, because I want to get this like bright red violet color.
And I am using my core palette, has a lovely indigo-ish pigment, so that's where I'm bringing it for. So
yeah, beautiful.
I don't know the name of it. Let me see if I can pull it out here. It is Athorpe blue. I can't read my own handwriting. Good Lord. Anyway, it's a dark indigo-ish blue from Core.
So as you're mixing these colors together, like we still want to see some of the lighter pink up here. I like using this zigzag motion with the wet on wet gradient so that the colors kind of blend together, but we see flickers of the other color. If you find that the lighter pink that we mixed is kind of getting lost, then you can go ahead and add more into it if you want. This is a super loose, kind of free for all. That's the way that I like to do skies, is just kind of super loose, really intuitive. Intuitive meaning there's no right or wrong. It's just doing what feels good. And so the picture has more of a darker violet at the bottom, which we can do. And so I'll do just like a little bit right at the bottom of that pink, and then kind of blend it up. And then we're going to transition back into a lighter pink down for the bottom ocean part, which will be the last thing that we paint. So when I painted that pink down here, it wasn't super vibrant. So I went ahead and just put more opera pink in my mix so that I could make it a little bit more vibrant, because we are going to layer things on top of it. So, all right. So now the end result is we have this sky blue and then this like mix of all of these dreamy colors with pink down at the bottom. And so the next step is to grab your towel.
Oh God. Oh, stop. This towel stuff makes me so nervous.
It's so fun.
Okay.
And it doesn't always work the way that you want, and that's why it's so fun.
Wait, okay, you're going to, remember you said earlier, around in a kind of a circle.
Yep. So I'm keeping this kind of circle-y part, like an amoeba kind of shape. I'm just like using my towel and pressing down really hard.
Really hard.
Yeah, so that I can lift the paint. And I think I let my paint dry a little too much, and so not all of it's lifting, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, mine's not. Well, it's not doing too shabby.
Yeah, it's okay. We're all good here.
I don't know what's happening.
More clouds up here. And then we're keeping that sky blue center. And then I'm going to have, as for like little detail, one kind of little wispy cloud right here. And then the last thing that we're going to lift is like right in the center, right here. We're going to try to make a little circle, and we can refine that later for the sun.
I'm waiting and watching, but I fear my pink is not lifting. My pink like stained this paper like it was its job.
That's okay. We can make your sun orange. We don't have to make it light yellow. You can make it a different color. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, it's lifting a little, but.
While this is still wet, I'm going to mix an orange with my opera rose and lemon yellow. Like this one is pretty orangey orange. And I'm going to paint a circle around where I just lifted the sun. So if your opera pink is not lifting, you could just paint that spot, just paint an orange circle right there. And that would be also beautiful. So that could be good to see two different versions of this. So I'm painting orange all the way around and then just kind of like feathering it out so that I have some additional color play going on here.
I'm making a big batty mess.
That is perfect. That's exactly what we want.
What I'm doing. In case you were wondering.
It looks great.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is, if your paper has dried a little where you've lifted from the clouds, we're just going to re-wet some of it. So some of the places where you see the clouds, you want to get the paper wet just in the middle. If you can see them, like the shape of the clouds that you made, a lot of the edges we want to leave white. Okay, so I'm just kind of in patchy little like brush strokes. I'm painting just like the center of the cloud out to the edges, but leaving a lot of the edges white.
Edges. And say again, what edges?
Of the cloud. So like the edges where you see the cloud, it's really, really light on mine.
Yes.
You see where the blue and then the white meet. That's the edge of the cloud, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I want to re-wet, but stay away from the edge.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. And as you're re-wetting, we want really organic brush strokes. We don't want any like smooth straight lines because this is still a cloud, right? So we want them to be really choppy. And it's okay if there are some dry paper spots. All of this is okay. We're trying to get lots of texture here.
Oh my goodness.
We are being so brave.
Oh gosh. I should have used arches, but it's okay.
It's okay.
Because I want to see what I can make happen.
Okay, so the first thing is we're going to start by layering on purple. And really choppy brush strokes in that wet space and in the clouds that are like down here. We're just going to layer on purple and leave a lot of these edges white.
So I should still be wet down here then, is what you're saying to me.
Well, we just barely re-wet those places. Yeah. Yeah, you're doing great. I'm looking at your... It's okay. You're doing great.
Uh-huh. I knew what I was into. I did.
Okay, yeah. If you find that your clouds are not wet anymore, then you definitely need to re-wet them.
Yeah, I'm re-wetting down here. I re-wet up here.
Yeah.
But
yeah, if you have less expensive paper, then less expensive paper often dries a lot quicker than arches does. So you might need to do the clouds one at a time. That's a good thing to note. You do the clouds, if you do the clouds one at a time, then they'll stay wet for the amount that you need them to stay wet for. But notice how I'm not trying to like fill them in exactly, right? I'm just doing these choppy little brush strokes with this purple. And the more we get up here, the less purple I'm going to need because we're going to do mostly blue up here. But I'm still going to, just for the sake of like outlining the clouds where the clouds are, I'm still going to put purple over here.
Yeah, I am re-wetting, everyone, on my Gen Crafts. But I'm modestly positive here, modestly about things.
It's so messy before the end. And even the end is messy, but the middle is particularly messy.
Yes.
So that's a big part of why we're doing this, because you and I talked a lot about practicing courage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I always say you got to paint through the ugly. And really that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to like be confident and okay and breathe through these messy moments.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So
my sky looks like there's a tornado coming.
Well, then maybe there's a tornado coming.
Yeah.
We're gonna paint more blue on top in just 1 minute. But I'm now going to take my size 6 brush and pick up some more of that like fluorescent orange color, and then just along the edges of the bottom clouds, I'm still leaving some of the edges that white color, but I'm blending in some of the orange. My purple is still wet, so that's part of why this is working, because my purple is still wet. So I am blending in some orange just along the bottom because this is like, you know, the sunlight's just flickering on the bottom of these clouds. And then I did leave this one cloud open like this. And friends, I have a hard stop in just a few minutes. And so we are going to breeze through this. Like I said, it's going to be fast and loose.
Fast and loose. Got it.
Fast and loose. Ooh. All right. So the edges.
Exciting.
We're just getting the edges of those clouds. And actually looking at this reference photo, I should have a cloud right here. And it's okay. We don't have to use the reference photo always, but I do think composition wise, it makes it look a little better. So I'm just, notice how I don't even remember if I had lifted anything right there. I just blocked on some color.
Blue, blue, blue. This is so fun. I'm sorry. This is crazy, but I actually am just falling in love with the process of being taught by someone else in something that I am wholly uncomfortable with.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I would hate to know that you weren't having fun.
No, blast. Fantastic. I mean, I'm still in the ugly zone here, but I'm okay with it now.
Okay. All right. So we have just the little flicker of sunlight along the bottom of those clouds here. And notice all of this white space I still left here. I did that on purpose because it's okay to have some light space. It adds texture, especially when you're painting light. Having highlights like this just makes it even more beautiful, right? So it's okay to leave behind texture like that. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm getting some indigo. This time I'm adding just a tiny little bit of opera rose to my indigo, just to make it slightly less deep blue. And then we're just going to paint in those loose brush strokes again, all along the top here, because the top clouds are this blue color.
They're very bold.
Yes.
That's nerve-wracking. And my brush is very pointy, which isn't helping me.
Actually, I think it could help you because you just have to flick it across. Actually, this is a funny thing to note. When I was a kid, I used to watch people paint, right? And they used to be so bold and confident with their brush strokes. And so I would pretend. I would, I stopped painting when I was like 10. But before then, I would pretend I was just as confident as they were, even though I really was only scribbling. And now I realize they were also only scribbling.
Yes, true. So true.
Yeah, it's not like, so I'm sitting here, I'm a professional artist. By the way, I'm adding some more indigo, some more pigmented indigo, just like on the edges. So we're having like a dark on the edges, lighter toward the middle kind of effect here. And I'm being intentionally really choppy so that there are pieces of the light space and pieces of the violet still showing through this blue. So that's super intentional. That's creating this luminous effect, right? Anyway, yeah. So I used to pretend I knew exactly what I was doing, dreaming of the day when I actually would know what I was doing. And now that I'm a professional artist, I realize, actually, it was all about getting comfortable not knowing what you're doing. That was actually the goal.
That was the key, right?
All right. So as we've added more water here, we lost a little bit of the violet clouds at the bottom. That's okay. We're going to go back and add a little bit more. The more you work with wet paint, the more water you add to paint, obviously, the lighter it gets. And so a lot of doing clouds is being comfortable going back and forth between adding and lifting and adding and lifting, and knowing that you're never going to get it exactly right. You're just going to, hopefully have fun along the way. I'm going to call that good only for the sake of time and to say that it's okay to call a big mess good.
Okay, so I just want to say, there's so much good happening here. There's moments like for me, and I'm big on calling out successes amidst chaos. I'm really enjoying this area here for myself.
That looks super beautiful. Like the sun is just glowing behind
Yeah,
it.
I feel like I learned a lot right here about the lifting and the leaving the edge and when and all the things. And so I did cheat. I added a little bleed proof white because I just couldn't control myself to get
that's
back.
not cheating. Not cheating.
No cheating. I knew you were going to say that. But yes, so good. And this is making me feel better right now. Here, this.
Right yeah. We're adding this. We're adding the ocean. So the way to add the ocean really fast and quick is to create some violet, and then we're just from the sides. We're just going to paint little wispies, little zigzag horizontal wispies from the sides, just like that. We want the middle of the ocean to mostly stay that peachy color, right?
Yep.
And this does not have to be like a realistic, photorealistic painting. This can be loose and abstract. It can be whatever you want it to be. I can be whatever you want to be, baby.
Ooh, yeah. I just had a Pretty Woman moment when he's like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "What do you want it to be?"
Yeah. Exactly. So we're just adding, and then if you want to, go even more extra, you add some more. You can add darker or even lighter violets here, just to add some more layers to this ocean. Because the thing about water is that it has so many colors, so much light reflecting in it. And so adding more color just adds more depth. Ideally, this would be dry. It's not right now. So the paint is blending together, and I'm okay with that. And so this is where I would be done, except the middle of my painting is super light. So I'm just going to be really brave and add some, my paper is dry, so it's going to leave some dried paint lines, but I'm just adding just some like zigzag wispies of the slightly darker sky blue, just to contrast more against the clouds.
Yep. Now mine was wet because I had re-wet it.
Right. Oh yeah, and that's perfect for you. Then you can just go ahead and add a little bit more. And to add one last detail, one final thing, and then I have to sign off. Yes. I'm going to just add a tiny little bit of this like sunset light at the bottom of that sky area. And there you go. All done.
Oh my gosh. This was just fantastic. I cannot thank you enough, Kolbie, for your insight, for you're just a creative cheerleader in so many ways. And I'm just so grateful for the time that you've spent with us. And friends, I'm all of the information, where to find Kolbie, how to get involved. She's got a lot of fun stuff coming up. It's all going to be below, so don't worry about that. We want you to find her and love her as much as I do. And so, yeah, this has been fantastic.
You are awesome, Christy. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Absolutely.
And your painting is lovely. It is so I'm honestly very impressed with what you were able to achieve on that paper.
With Gengraphs, I know. Oh my gosh, I'm okay with it. I'm here. I'm still rooting for Gengraphs. All right.
Yay. Okay. Thank you so much, Christy. This was so much fun, and honestly,
it was really fun.
Was great.
Oh, thanks. It's not too shabby for Gengraphs. Now I'm gonna go try it on Arches though. Now.